Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So that's what we do on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature, picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels too. Whether you're an adult reading to your inner child or connecting the young readers in your lives with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. Each week, we'll talk to a different children's literature author and discuss their books, their hopes and dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. So, grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back to another bookish conversation with children's literature authors. Today, I'm talking with Bernard Mensah. Bernard's stories are about celebrating different cultures, having fun, and taking readers on exciting adventures. He's written Essie the Brave, Who Was Not Afraid of Anything, and Jollof Day. He's here to talk about both of those on today's episode. There is so much beauty inside and outside each of these picture books, and I cannot wait to talk about them. So let's just get right to it. Bernard, welcome to KidLit Love. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am too. I love meeting new to me authors, and I also love meeting authors who I know are on a mission in KidLit. And you are both of those things, which is really exciting. So I would love for you to just start with you and to tell us a bit about you, about your work, about your books before we jump into the titles that we're here to talk about today.
Sure. So I'm Bernard. I grew up in Ghana. My dad was the one who sort of started my love of reading, and once I got the bug, it never stopped.
Yes.
I have many funny stories of him buying me lots of books and then me finishing them in a night, and him getting really upset about the fact that now he needs to get me new books. Um, so that sort of love for reading continued into my older years, and when I had my own children, I started to ask the question, where are the books that represent our culture and our heritage? And I had the crazy idea that maybe I should start to write those books.
Yes.
And a few years later, I seem to be doing okay, and my books seem to be connecting with people. So yeah, that's like a very quick rundown of my journey into KidLit.
Yeah. So I want more details.
Sure.
Because that is a nice big overview. What, when you made the decision of, you know what, I think I can do this. I think I want to do this. I think I need to do it, right? The KidLit
Yeah.
community needs it. How did you? Did you just jump in head first? Did it take you a while to get your feet wet? I'd love to know how you went from that decision to actually doing the work.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was a bit naive in the beginning, to be honest with you. I thought all I needed was a good story, and as soon as I got a good story, that's all I needed to be able to um publish the book. So I wrote a story, and I tried to shop it around various publishers and, well, sorry, various agents and publishers, and everybody was saying no. And I was like, well, they don't know what they're talking about, so I'm going to publish it myself. So I self-published my first book. It didn't do particularly well, but I learned a lot about the publishing process, the things that work, how publishing itself sort of hangs together, the business side of publishing through that. So it wasn't a lost cause. It was a way for me to really learn the ins and outs of publishing from a different perspective. So after that first book, I decided that, okay, I do need an agent, and I do need to learn how to write picture books in the way that the industry expects picture books to be written. So the format, the skills of writing a picture book. And so I and a few other friends at the time formed Black Creators in KidLit. which was a community for us to get together and teach and learn from each other as to how to write picture books and other formats for KidLit. And it was and is still a very successful space for Black creators to be able to learn those skills. And the thing that I really find fascinating is because writing a picture book is very hard. You've got a few pages, a limited vocabulary, and you have to tell a full story, an emotional story from beginning to end, and take readers on a journey. And it's a really fantastic form in terms of literature. I think it's harder to write a picture book than to write a novel. And there are so many little tips and tricks and ways to think about how you take that word, especially when you're an author and not an author illustrator, how you use your words to carry the story across so that they balance well with the pictures that go along with the story. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Natalie, who's my agent, was the first one who sort of picked up me as somebody that she wanted to work with as a client. And 3 months after I signed with her, I sold my first book. So it was a pretty whirlwind journey after that.
Yes.
And the two of us have worked really well together to a little bit of success, I should say.
Yes. I really love you including the part that you self-published because there's a lot of talk in the publishing world. Do you self-publish? Do you not? Do you hybrid? Do you traditional? What counts? What doesn't? There's so much swirling around that. But you taking action in that way, like you don't know what you don't know until you do something. Right. And then
Absolutely.
you figure it out as you stumble along and then eventually end up getting to where you need to go. So I find that really inspiring that, even if you're not quite sure what to do, but you want to write, just do something. Do something
Exactly.
and go in that direction. And find
Absolutely.
your support system of or
Absolutely.
create one. That's what I love about you.
Absolutely.
Create your support system
Yeah,
around you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So your stories, as I gave a little teaser in the introduction, they're about celebrating different cultures, having fun, which is always wonderful in a picture book, and taking readers on this exciting adventure, whether it's an exciting adventure outside the home or a really fun one with your family inside it. And so I'd love for you to talk about how you get your ideas for these picture books and kind of what your mission around writing them is.
That's a great question. So in terms of ideas, um, I am very blessed in the fact that I've got the whole African continent to pick from. It's a continent full of wonderful heritage, wonderful stories that are told in homes all the time. And so that's one area of inspiration. The other inspiration is just looking at my own kids. I have a very selfish interest in ensuring that at every age, my kids have something that reflects their heritage on a bookshelf somewhere that they can pick up because they live here. It's a way for them to connect back to things that they might not have connected to when they were growing up because they don't live in Ghana.
Yeah.
So that's another source of inspiration. And the third source of inspiration is my own lived experiences. So Is It a Brave, for example, is based on my first experience at the festival. And a lot of how AC feels is how I felt. The bewilderment she feels is how I felt when I first got there. Because unlike in the story where the parents sort of warn her what's happening, I was asleep on the journey. And when I woke up,
Oh no.
I was in the midst of it. So, so that whole energy around what was going on, what is this stuff? It's sort of what I wanted to convey in that story. And it's also a book about bravery and facing your fears and the fact that things that may seem scary may not actually be
Yeah.
scary when you look them in the eye.
Yeah.
So that's the inspiration for that one. Jollof Day, that comes from my earliest memory of eating jollof. And I think I wrote about it in the blurb of the back matter. Like I still remember it like today. I don't know what was special about that day, but I remember the pot, I remember the atmosphere, I remember it was raining, and just the sensation of having this warm thing in my hand
Yeah.
and the taste explosion. It's basically a story that writes itself. And the actual title came from my kids. There was one day we were at home on a weekend, and I did say I was going to make some jollof, and they both started shouting, "Jollof day!"
Oh, that's wonderful.
And the youngest one insisted that I carry him on his shoulders. So if you look at the first page of the book, that's exactly what
Yeah.
happened, and that's where I got it from. So my kids play a part in the inspiration for some of these books as well.
Oh, I love knowing that. Those always feel like little Easter eggs to me when I can then go back in the books and see the pieces of you, pieces of the author, the family, the inspiration behind it. And I know that you said, that it's kind of selfish. You want your kids to kind of see that and see themselves, their culture in every phase, but it's just needed. It's not
Yeah,
selfish. It's needed, it's deserved, it's a right that they should have in children's
absolutely.
literature. And I feel like that really is for me, at least in my experience, it is what made me realize that how the world works for me isn't always how it works for others, and how I see the world isn't always how others sees it. And some of that is really hard, important learning, and some of it is really wonderful family tradition learning. But it is
Absolutely.
just a right that I just so strongly believe that everybody needs to have in literature, but especially children's literature, when you kids just deserve that. And so I
Absolutely.
hear you talking about, I always get goosebumpy when I talk about this because it is just such a right that I think all kids deserve. And hearing you talk about it from the context of your experience and your family and your kids just makes it all that much more important and personal and
Absolutely.
worthwhile to do this work.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I realized as I was going along was that there's a there's a way to be successful in traditional publishing, and some of the gaps in what we see in the stories that are being told in traditional publishing doesn't have to do with necessarily the quality of the stories, but because the people that are writing these stories don't have that knowledge gap. So
Mhm.
apart from doing Black Licks and Kidlets, I also created a small publishing house called Habermas, which is solely Africa focused. And one of the things that we found in the course of doing this is that there's so much talent in Africa, and I'm so excited about this. Like I actually smile because
I wish
we
they
did
could
a
see you. I think they
yeah
could hear your enthusiasm, but I wish they
yeah
could see your big smile.
yeah. So we put out a call for work about a year and a half ago. We got hundreds of submissions, and the quality of the submissions were just amazing, both artwork and stories. And one of the things we are doing is this is all self-funded. One of the things we are doing is actually putting together courses for all of these people, free courses for them to learn how to write, how to upskill their writing, how to pitch, all of those skills that are really, really important to be able to be successful in traditional publishing. And I am excited that in a year or two, my hope is that we start to see more of these talented artists and authors actually becoming more mainstream, because honestly it's mind blowing what's out there, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to contribute even a tiny bit to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting to think you're just not even scratching the surface
Not at
of
all.
of what's out there. And so you've got just this beautiful parallel track where you're bringing this work to life yourself and you're bringing along everybody else that you possibly can with you
Absolutely.
to just keep
Yes.
keep it going up and up. Oh, it's really exciting. It's really, really exciting in the kidlit space. I do want to talk a little bit more specifically about both of your books. So let's start with Essie the Brave. You did talk a little bit about it already. It's based on a personal experience that you have. For readers that don't know this book yet, could you give a little overview of what
Sure.
it's about and that inspiration behind it?
Sure. So all of my books, all of my picture books at least, are around I like to think they're around a really interesting character, and I build a story around that. So Izzy the Brave is a very funny little girl. I love her to bits. She's brave, she's brash, she's confident,
Yes.
and she has no fears in the world. If it's ghosts, bring them on. If it's anything spooky, bring it on. She's just here for it all. And uh, that's how the story starts off. And as she goes to this new experience, she starts to find out that, well, there might be some things that are a little bit scarier than the monsters in her books. And now she has to figure out how to navigate this new experience, which is the Kakomotobi Festival. It's a festival that's based on a real festival that happens in Ghana in December. And it's a fancy dress festival with masquerades and masks and people on stilts. And it goes on for a few days. Um, and it's loud, it's musical, there's lots of food. So she finds herself surrounded by what she believes are monsters. But in the end, she has to, and these monsters seem to kidnap her parents. So what happens is that she runs away because that's your first response when something scary happens. And then at some point, she decides that, well, her parents need to be saved. And she turns around and faces her fears. And I think that's one of the coolest things that Rissa, who's the illustrator, did. That spread, I could not have hoped for it to turn out
It's
as
gorgeous.
good
It is. It's gorgeous. It's powerful. And I'm glad you talked about both of those because I feel like as a book, the book does give readers this just really amazing look at a festival that they may not have known before they have read the book. But it's also a book about confidence and fears and facing them. So you're getting both here. And I know the spread you're talking about. And I do just want to say every single page, by the way, is just gorgeous and brings your words to life. I'm so glad you mentioned the illustrator because you can't not just want to dive into these pages.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love about all the illustrators I've worked with is that they do understand the mission and they do understand the importance of authenticity. So there's so many Easter eggs in the book. There's so much research that went into the art for the book. So the masks, for example, we watched videos and made sure that they were as accurate as possible. The textures that you see are from Kente. Like there's so many little Easter eggs that we put in the book itself to really bring that connection to traditional Ghanaian culture to life.
Yeah. I lost count of how many times I would just go back to the beginning
Yeah,
because every time I would see something else, I would
that's
focus on a different item in the
yeah,
illustration and
yeah.
it just it's not a book that gets old. You just could
Thank
keep
you.
looking and looking and looking and really just embracing it. And the other piece that I loved along with the illustrations because I'm a word nerd too, and I love how the words are conveyed, but the format of the text and
Yeah,
the moving nature of it, the twisty nature of it, some of them are all caps, the font. I
yeah.
really loved the font. Like every item, every piece of the book just seemed to come together so perfectly to bring that emotion.
Thank you. That was a partnership between us design, as in I and Rissa in design, and we edited the book over and over again. So the bits you see in caps, some of them were not caps before. We had multiple readings of the book where we are just checking out the pacing, making sure that the pacing was right on each page, and that page 10 was just about the right point. And it's a nerve-wracking experience up until the point where they say, "Okay, we are done. This is final now. You cannot make it." You cannot make any more changes. And at that point, you go like, I hope I've done this right.
Right. Right. That is the one thing I've learned in my 100 plus episodes on the podcast of just how much detail, how much conversation, how much decision making over one word or the where the word is really does matter and can just go right up into the very end. But eventually you do just have to let go and trust
Yeah. Yeah.
readers. It's the reader's turn now.
Yeah,
Let
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Jollof Day. Oh my
Mm.
gosh. I don't have a favorite, but I have to admit, out of the two, I really loved the emotional hug that I got from it, right? It's music, it's food, it's family, it's love. It was just all of those things. And I do love how in the book you do say in a repetitive way of the day is this or the day is that. And as a reader, I just really felt it. And so I'd love for you to give listeners a sneak peek into this book too.
Sure. So it's very much I wrote this book in like 2 days, which for me
Wow.
is not heard of. Most of my books take months
Yeah.
to write, and
It was
I'll
meant to be
be
written.
yeah. It was just an idea that came to me after literally after they sang that song, and the next day I was like, Jollof Day. And then I started writing it, and I was like, okay, I get this. I get it. And I was really excited about the story. And the one thing that I was trying to navigate is the fact that there is some healthy competition amongst many West African countries about jollof day recipes. And I wanted to write something that transcended that and just talked about the experience for West Africans when it comes to jollof and that passion when it comes to jollof. And it's an experience that's mirrored across the world. Every culture has that one dish that brings the whole family together. That takes a while to make. And when you're finished, there's a sense of reward and
Mhm.
celebration and family. And so that's what I wanted to definitely get across in that. The one thing that I am very, very passionate about when it comes to writing picture books is, and I think every picture book author is, but I especially love pacing and voice. And if you notice, all of my books have a different voice and a
Mhm.
slightly different pacing because I feel like it helps you to really connect with the story and the, au- the authentic voice of the child that is being told from. So yeah, so yes, the one thing you did mention, which I just want to pick up on, is the repetition of the various words in the book. Again, that was intentional. I wanted the reader to be able to, for each page, really sort of narrow in into the feeling I was trying to get across on that page, so that when you repeat it, you sort of get that sense of rhythm through the story. And I'll speak about one of my favorite spreads. It's
Oh,
the
good.
spread where the sauces slowly simmer. I love alliteration, and so when I was able to bring that in, and then when you see the lovely artwork that she did for that page, where they are both dad and the little boy are both like peeking over the sauce, I was like, oh, she did amazing there. I didn't tell her anything about what to do. She did her own research and she brought her own artistic talent to that. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, the illustrations just do perfectly match. The very, very beautiful pairings
Thank you.
in both of these books. And I love too that there is a recipe
Yes.
that's included in the book to really, if listeners, if readers wanted to really embrace this, they could.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a terrible cook, Bernard, but maybe I would attempt to do it. But regardless, I think it makes readers think about, well, what's our thing?
Yeah,
What is and
absolutely.
connect with our own families that way as well. So we could learn, we could branch out, we could try something new, but we could also just kind of soak in what we already have and embrace that feeling that you bring to the book in our own lives. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's just so much love inside the pages. And now
Absolutely.
listening to you, knowing it was based on your family and how easily it flowed, it just makes sense that that is the emotion that comes across the page.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It means a lot because I am really passionate about all my books, but that one specifically I was it was very close to my heart.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could definitely tell. Now, we've talked about these two books today, but they're not the only things that you've done, right? You have other works. Can you give us any sneak peeks into some of your other projects or maybe something you're working on that we might be able to expect in the future?
Sure. So the one thing I'll say to preface it is that I have so many stories that I am hoping to be able to tell.
Mhm.
And one of the conversations I have with Natalie, my agent, is always is around what my brand is because um, there are spooky stories I want to tell. There are really, really silly stories that I want to tell, and there are these character-driven stories that talk about culture and different experiences that I also want to tell. So there's Kwame's Magic Quest, which is out already with Scholastic, which is a chapter book series, and it's highly researched. Everything I write in there is about real magic, real African traditions, and I've woven it into a story, which so that's out already. There's a spooky book that I'm working on with a publisher that I cannot name just yet.
Okay.
But that's an early reader spooky book that I'm excited to write about. And I also do like to write in nonfiction space. So there are a few nonfiction titles that I've just recently released. So again, my focus is Africa. So I wrote a Deserts of Africa book with Oxford University Publishing, which is out. I wrote a cats book with National Geographic, which is also out. And there's a few others in the pipeline, which I
Um,
can't talk about just yet. But yes, I've got lots of stuff on the radar. I'm writing a middle grade at the moment, based around three little, well, I say three little, 9, 10 and 8-year-old friends who come across some old pirate radio equipment, and a few things happen after that. So I'm excited about that potentially coming out later in the year.
so you have more space in the middle grade novel to explore. You don't have to quite be so worried of
Absolutely.
how many words. You can let
Yes.
yourself go a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. And it's I think for me is a really important part of the creative process to have things in different aspects, because when I get stuck in one
Mhm.
particular genre, I can turn to try and problem solve in another, and then I can use that energy to come back
Yeah.
to figure out where I'm going with a particular story.
So how this is totally a selfish question because I like you, I have so many projects and things I would love to do across my whole life in my head. How do you keep track? Do you have, a treasured notebook? Is it this big Google Doc? Like how do you make sense of all of these different things you just want to put out in the world?
Is Excel. So
Yeah.
I have a massive Excel sheet, and every now and then I panic and cry, and I speak to Natalie and go like, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, the existential angst of being an author is forever there. So she helps me keep me grounded, and sometimes I go like, I've got these 4 projects. I've got a little bit of time. I don't know which one to work on, and she goes like, I think this is where you should
Yeah.
probably spend your efforts. And
Yeah.
I don't always listen, but I listen most of the time.
Yeah. I knew there had to be something, some way that you bound it all together. And
Yeah,
it seems like it comes back to that community too, that you surround yourself
absolutely.
with to help ground yourself, calm yourself down in the mission so that you can just keep going and put those
Absolutely.
stories out there.
Absolutely. Writing is such a lonely thing to do. Even though you're surrounded by people, it's like as long as it's in your head until it actually comes out on the paper,
Yeah.
your community can't help you. And
That's
it's
such a good point.
and it's about getting to that point where it's actually out on a piece of paper somewhere. You can tell somebody, does this make any sense?
Yeah.
Should I continue with this? And you can start to have those conversations. It's also
Right.
a very vulnerable process as well. And
Mhm.
when my first book came out, I was like, oh my God, people are going to read this. And
Yeah.
somebody might not like it.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting experience. Publishing is
Yeah,
very
I mean,
interesting.
really, your books are pieces of you. They're extensions of
Yeah,
you, and you put
exactly.
them out into the world and hope that what you hope to accomplish is what people actually see.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's a I've learned, and that's why I really dislike some traditional rating systems that
Mm,
readers put all over the world and on there because a reader's reaction is a unique experience between the reader and the book and the author. And there are a bazillion factors, right, that go into that can influence how someone feels about it. And so
mm,
I've only written nonfiction books for adults, and I know how nerve-wracking that is. But to take a personal part of me, something related to my family or my kids or my
yeah,
culture or my story, like it takes a lot of courage. to do that. And so I'm just grateful that you are, because they are so beautiful. They're so,
Thank you.
and we're only talking about the two today, but they really are beautiful books. And I'm just so glad that you took that first jump to put them into the world.
Thank you. And what you say is very, very true. Like, and it's something that you have to come to, well, I had to come to terms with, that everyone that picks up that book, like you beautifully said, is a unique experience between them, what's happening around them at the time,
Yeah.
and the story, and me. And you just have to trust that over time people will get that message.
Yeah.
The one person I do also have to call out is my wonderful editor, who's Michelle Lee. She was she was how should I put it? She was like our number one fan. She worked to make sure that we had the best illustrator for the book. And initially, when she mentioned one of the illustrations, I was like, I really don't see how this is going to work out, but I trust you. And and when we saw the first like drafts of the artwork, I was like, oh my god,
Yep.
she, that's
Perfect.
why you are an editor. That's why you're an editor and I'm an author. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout
They
out to
see
them.
the bigger pictures. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Absolutely.
So where can listeners find out more about you, follow your work, follow all of these books that will be coming next? What's the best place to find you online?
Oh, so I have a website called books by Bernard Mensah .com. And my handles on all social media is exactly the same, books by Bernard Mensah. So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. And I try to post regularly. But I have a newsletter coming out soon where I'll be sharing sneak peeks of new projects and existing projects and giveaways and raffles and all of those kinds of things as well.
I love a good newsletter. Thank you for that. I will put links to your social media handles, the website, so they can sign up for that newsletter, and of course, links to the books that we talked
Thank
about
you so
today
much.
in the show notes to make it as easy as we can for people to find them. Thank you so much. Like, you
Thank you
have
too.
such a quiet energy that I can just see. I wish this is one of the rare times that I wish we were on YouTube and people could see us, because you do just have this passion for this work, this writing, this
Thank you.
mission in KidLit. And I'm just so grateful that you came onto the podcast to talk about it. I wish you so much luck. The door is open. Every time you have a new book, I'd love
Oh,
to have
thank
you back
you.
on to talk about it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And thank you
Welcome.
for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. And listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of KidLit Love, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing, and everything in between to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a bookish friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.